Well, thanks for clicking on to the November Outlook edition of Vogan's US Outlook. It's Sunday evening, it's the 23rd of October 2016, and looking at the month so far, like September, it has been a very, very warm month, with the exceptions of the West and particularly the Northern Plain states, or should I say the Northern Rockies. We've had a fairly cold October thus far. Of course, bear in mind this is only taking us out to the 23rd of the month, but look at the warmth that has been in control, firm control, probably a record warm October for some parts of the Tennessee and the Ohio Valley when all is said and done. But looking at the stark contrast underneath here, look at the bottom right hand chart here. This represents the month of October so far in Europe. And you notice here the dramatic contrast between very warm versus rather cold across this side of the Atlantic here. Now, let's look at what has been in place this month. We've had a strong negative, not positive, but a negative Arctic oscillation, which has, in a sense, delivered the cold here. We've had a very strong block in the high pressure system over Scandinavia, and the cold has been flown in from Russia underneath that area of high pressure. But it's been the opposite across the eastern half of the United States here. So given the fact that we've had a negative Arctic oscillation, yes, we have had a positive North Atlantic oscillation, but it just shows you, even with that, we don't necessarily get a cold pattern over the eastern half of the United States. Just like when we had a negative Arctic oscillation here in Europe, it was mild, and we didn't have the benefits of that index here. So as we look towards the month of November here, are we going to start to see the cool down? That is the big question. Certainly, the CFSV2 500 millibar height anomaly chart indicates that we're going to see more warmth as we end the month of October. You can see here the reason why. Now, yes, we've got a very chilliest since early spring, of course, for the northeastern half of the country. We've had the first heavy snowfall for the high elevations of New England in the northeast, even extending down the spine of the Appalachians. But cast your eyes to here. Yes, we've got the positive up over Alaska, but you've got the negative here extending from the southern Gulf of Alaska down the west coast. What that does is correlates to more positive over the central portion of the nation. And as we push through the final days of October, the trough basically becomes aligned from the Bering Sea all the way down to the Baja of California. And that is a warm signal for the eastern half of the United States. So we have a slow time lifting the trough out, but it eventually does so. It generally joins up with this high that's building over the North Atlantic and Greenland, and that is a hint, folks, that is a hint of something later down the road in the month of November. I do think the front running part of November, excuse me, the front running part of November for Europe is going to be cold, but I do think it's going to be warm for the eastern half of the United States. So we're going to follow the same path as what we've done so far in October into the month of November. But once you get into the 11 to 15 and eventually the 15 through 20 and 21 through 25, that is where we're going to start to see this ridge of high pressure build northwards and see this trough. You can start to see it sliding underneath here. So we'll look at that there as we go into the 16 through 20. You can start to see here that that area of high pressure that is over the Great Lakes, over the northeast, is starting to lift northwards, and you're starting to get the trough and systems coming underneath. So I think the second half of November is going to start to see a change here. And by the time we skip out to the 21 through 25, you've got a fairly chilly signal here with trough underneath the ridge of high pressure to the north here. Looking at the 2 meter temperature anomalies, you can see here that warmth rules through the first half of the month overall. So we start off with the first 5 days, and you can see here the residual cool over the eastern half of the country as that trough swings through. There we go here. Eastern Canada, very chilly, warm across much of the country, though west of really west of Ontario here we've got a pretty warm pattern here the upcoming 5 days. We've got warmth over the west and central portion of the country. That then starts to push into the eastern half of the country in the 6 to 10. Then in the 11 to 15, very warm, if you notice here, across the majority of the United States. But we're starting to feed in colder air, albeit Pacific cold. It's not Arctic cold, but you can start to see where the pattern is going by the time we get out to day 21 through 25, which takes us out to the 17th of November. And finally, let's look at the month of November overall of the CFS V2 monthly. And this is how it's looking with the 500 millibar height anomaly chart. So it's indicating, folks, it is indicating that we do have somewhat of a negative here over the eastern half of the country, but we've got a lot of positive here. This indicates a lot of zonal flow, a lot of Pacific origin air coming in from the Pacific into the United States here, and with that very strong Aleutian low region here down towards Hawaii, it doesn't signify a particularly cold November, really. I think we're going to see a lot of westerly flow here, given this overall setup if it materializes. And we're going to have a strong jet as well with that pressure gradient. Big ridge of high pressure could be something worth watching here. 2-minute temperature anomalies finally. You can see here that we are talking about, well, a fairly mild November, I think, overall. Especially up across Canada, where we've got a very persistent positive here in place. But I do think there's going to be too much residual warmth over the lower 48 for anything particularly cold for the upcoming month here. But it looks as if we could see a colder pattern towards the end of the month. So we'll wait and see what happens. That's it for today. Do check out the written November outlook on markfoganweather.com, and thanks for watching if you're on YouTube. Bye for now.